Hello, welcome to Miss Peepers Reading Corner. I'm Katrina, aka Miss Peepers. Let's talk about boarding school. Today we're talking about Looking for Alaska by John Green. Now this book is number 6 in the top 10 most frequently banned books from last year. It is actually a tie for number 6 with Me and Earl and the Dying Girl by Jessie Andrews, which I will talk about in another video. And it's also the only repeat book from last year, which I am repeating because it's in the top 10. This was published in 2005 and it's still in the top 10. I think it's sort of bounced in and out a little bit over the 20 years, but happy 20th anniversary. This is John Green's semi-autobiographical debut novel about a boy named Miles Halter who is just starting to go to boarding school. He gets there, he's awkward, he's not really sure how to make friends, but he wants to get a fresh start. But he does end up finding his place at this school and also falling in love with a girl named Alaska Young, who is just larger than life, and his relationship and experience with her changes him forever. We're going to jump right into this because I've talked about this book before on this channel, and we're going to talk about why it was banned. This book was banned because of the sex. Also the drinking and the smoking, but primarily the sex. There is a scene in this book in which Miles and his sort of girlfriend Laura attempt oral sex, and neither of them really knows what they're doing. And the censors believe that this scene encourages teenagers to have sex themselves. But you don't need to take the censors' word for it. I'm gonna read that scene to you right now. So if you need something to clutch, pause the video and go grab your pearls. Are you sitting comfortably? Let's begin. Now, Laura is Romanian. I am not going to try to do her accent, even though it's a little bit written in here. I feel like my attempt would detract from the text. I spent that afternoon with Laura. We were very cutesy, even though we didn't know the first thing about each other and barely talked. But we made out. She grabbed my butt at one point, and I sort of jumped. I was lying down, but I did the best version of jumping that one can do lying down. And she said, "Sorry." And I said, "No, it's okay. I'm just a little sore from the swan." A swan bit him. We walked to the TV room together and I locked the door. We were watching The Brady Bunch, which she had never seen. The episode where the Bradys visit the gold mining ghost town and they all get locked up in the one-room jail by some crazy old gold panner with a scraggly white beard was especially horrible and gave us a lot to laugh about. Which is good since we didn't have much to talk about. Just as the Bradys were getting locked in jail, Lara randomly asked me, "Have you ever gotten a blowjob?" That's out of the blue," I said. "The blue? Like, you know, out of left field." Left field. Like in baseball, like out of nowhere. I mean, what made you think of that? "I've just never given one," she answered, her little voice dripping with seductiveness. It was so brazen. I thought I would explode. I never thought, from Alaska, hearing that stuff was one thing, but to hear her sweet little Romanian voice go so sexy all of a sudden. "No," I said, "I never have." "Think it would be fun?" "Do I?" Yeah, you don't have to." "I think I want to," she said. And we kissed a little. And then with me sitting watching The Brady Bunch, watching Marcia, up to her Brady antics, Laura unbuttoned my pants and pulled my boxers down a little and pulled out my penis. "Wow," she said. "What?" She looked up at me, but didn't move, her face nanometers away from my penis. "It's weird." "What do you mean, weird?" "Just big, I guess." I could live with that kind of weird. Then she wrapped her hand around it and put it into her mouth and waited. We were both very still. She did not move a muscle in her body, and I did not move a muscle in mine. I knew that at this point something else was supposed to happen, but I wasn't quite sure what. She stayed still. I could feel her nervous breath. For minutes, for as long as it took the Bradys to steal the key and unlock themselves from the ghost town jail, she lay there, stock still with my penis in her mouth, and I sat there, waiting. Then she took it out of her mouth and looked up at me quizzically. "Should I do something?" I don't know," I said. Everything I'd learned from watching porn with Alaska suddenly exited my brain. I thought maybe she should move her head up and down, but wouldn't that choke her? So I just stayed quiet. "Should I, bite?" "Don't bite! I don't think. I think that felt good. That was nice. I don't know if there's something else. I mean, you didn't, maybe we should ask Alaska. So we went to her room and asked Alaska. She laughed and laughed. Sitting on her bed, she laughed until she cried. She walked into the bathroom, returned with a tube of toothpaste, and showed us, in detail, never have I so wanted to be crest complete. Laura and I went back to her room where she did exactly what Alaska told her to do, and I did exactly what Alaska said I would do, which was die 100 little ecstatic deaths, my fists clenched, my body shaking. It was my first orgasm with a girl, and afterward I was embarrassed and nervous, and so clearly was Laura, who finally broke the silence by asking, "So, want to do some homework?" All right, y'all. First of all, not an instruction manual, so we'll say that. I wouldn't call that pornographic, personally. And the part that is described in any kind of detail is not particularly appealing, intentionally so. Obviously, once they get it right, they get it right. But the fact that this scene so upset people that they felt that teenagers should not be allowed to read it is just kind of mind-boggling to me. It's definitely awkward. These are two people who don't know what they're doing, who both have this idea that something is supposed to happen here, and it's both an event and a non-event at the same time. And so it's very much that sort of fumbling teenage, we have these urges and instincts, but we don't quite know what to do with them kind of scene. And I mean, I don't see what's wrong with it. I truly do not see what's wrong with it, unless you feel that teenagers should not know that sex is a thing that happens. Or that sex is a thing that teenagers might engage in, which unfortunately a lot of the censors do believe. So why should you read this book, if not for the awkward sort of sex scene? First of all, John Green is one of my favorite authors. I've not made a secret of that. His writing is beautiful and thoughtful, and this is his debut novel, and he only gets better the more he writes, which is what you like to see in an author. But this book is gorgeous. It's the first one of his books that I read, and I was immediately hooked, and I thought, I have to read the rest. I've got to read the rest. And so I did, and I continue to do so. I started reading his books as an adult, so for me, there's something of a nostalgic component or a sort of reminder of how awkward young adulthood can be, that teenage years can be. His characters in different books are of varying ages, but I can imagine if these books had existed when I was a teenager. John Green's not that much older than me, so he was, I think, going through college when I was going through high school, I believe, if I did my math right. If I had had access to these books, I think they would have made me feel a little bit less alone. And Miles is certainly not a perfect character. His relationship with Alaska is not terribly healthy, which is part of the point of the book. And this book just spans the full range of big emotions that teenagers have, as well as those small moments that stick with you for a lifetime, even when most of it fades. And it's just really beautiful. But let me know, have you read Looking for Alaska? What did you think of it? Have you read anything else by John Green? What are your thoughts of him as an author, both of young adult and also now of nonfiction? What do you think of his work? And either way, whatever you do, please keep reading, and I'll see you in the next one.